As the headline in the New York Times puts it, the world's richest men are taking on the world's poorest children. That column from Nick Kristof, who joins us now. Nick, your column really hit me. And when you hear what Andrea just said, for example, food rotting and not getting to people who are starving, when you listen to the president and you listen to Bill Gates, it's like they're talking about two completely different organizations. You've been all over the globe seeing firsthand USAID's work. What is the dismantling of USAID doing to children?
It's killing children, Chris. That's the bottom line. And this notion that President Trump talks about as some corrupt agency and kind of rogue employees is just so outrageous. 99 USAID people have died over the years in the line of duty. These are people who are risking their lives, and then they're treated like some kind of crooks. It is just appalling. Remember in 2014 when Donald Trump, private citizen, was terrified and cowering about the risk of the Ebola epidemic that started in West Africa. The reason that didn't reach the U.S. in a major way was precisely because you had USAID employees on the ground in Guinea and Sierra Leone and Liberia, risking their lives to try to stop that. And right now, there's a Ebola outbreak in Liberia, a Marburg virus outbreak in Tanzania. And now, because of Musk and Trump, you don't have USAID employees trying to stop that there. The idea that they are somehow engaged in all these kind of woke gestures when what they're actually doing is saving kids' lives from hunger, from starvation, from AIDS, from malaria is just a complete misrepresentation. And, how often have Donald Trump or Elon Musk risked their lives on behalf of public service?
I was with Samantha Power, Nick, in Liberia and Sierra Leone and Guinea in 2014. I saw the life-saving work those folks did to help avert the pandemic at a time when Americans were indeed in a panic. And you talk about these other outbreaks, this growing Ebola outbreak in Uganda. Without USAID, how scared should we be? Not just obviously for ourselves, although we were very scared here in the United States in 2014, but what could happen out in the world?
So it's very hard to gauge the actual risk of Ebola or Marburg or avian flu reaching us. But that risk is higher today than it was a week ago because of what Trump has done. For example, experts are clearly concerned about a major avian flu pandemic worldwide. One way we stop that is with surveillance around the world. Well, because of this defunding, bird flu surveillance has been interrupted in 49 countries around the world. So this notion that this is simply, do-gooders wasting money somewhere else is completely misleading. Yes, it is about our values, but it's also about our interests. And this is a crucial element of our national security.
Well, if someone isn't moved, Nick, by the avoidable and potentially painful deaths of poor children, you point out in your column that when President Kennedy proposed the creation of USAID, it would actually do what DOJ says it wants to do, save money. Help us understand that calculus.
So, if you think about how much we spent on the COVID-19, how much devastation that did to the American economy and to the global economy, that the way to stop that would have been early on in one particular place. And, that is precisely what this Trump effort has stopped. If you don't address things at the front end, you end up paying much, much more at the back end. And look, we confront China with expensive aircraft carriers, but we also compete with China in Africa, for example. China is going to be thrilled at our just pulling out of the competition. It was striking that when Robert Gates was defense secretary, he was pleading with Congress to allocate more money to USAID because those kinds of investments are a crucial escort of military spending. When Jim Mattis was testifying before Congress, he said that if you don't invest in diplomacy, you've got to buy me more bullets. And so this kind of investment, it does indeed save money. It does indeed save American lives, as well as those of people halfway around the world. And so, we should have hearts that bleed for kids who are dying unnecessarily, but we should also be alert to our own security. And that's what USAID helps accomplish.
And you did mention how Donald Trump said USAID was run by radical lunatics. And I want to read part of what you wrote. Is it radical lunacy to try to save children's lives, to promote literacy for girls, to fight blindness? Does Trump believe that rescuing children from rape is a radical lunatic cause? Do you wonder, Nick, if it'll take, I don't know, pictures of dying and dead children, sick children, victims to produce an outcry? Can everyday Americans do what Congress seems, at least many members, unwilling to do, which is to put pressure on to say we need to reassess what we're doing here for our own security, as well as for the lives of a lot of defenseless folks out there, many of them children?
I do think, Chris, that there is some realistic chance that much of this can be rolled back. I think that, much of the Republican Party is rightly really proud of PEPFAR, the program started by George W. Bush to fight AIDS. It saved 26 million lives so far, and that is implemented in part through USAID. And so Marco Rubio a few years ago was calling on the Biden administration to invest more in USAID as a way to advance the competition with China, for example. So I do think that while too many Republican voices are quiet right now, there is some recognition about the enormous damage this is doing, not just to kids in Sudan or Botswana, but to Americans right here. And I hope that outcry will be enough to mitigate the damage at least, and hopefully reverse much of it.
I recommend the column to folks, as you point out. Everything can be improved. USAID is not exempt from that. There are certainly things that they could do better, but you put it into such perfect context. Nicholas Kristof, thank you for writing that, and thank you for coming on the program.